Imagine a world shrouded in fear. A relentless cough echoes through cobblestone streets. People clutch at their boils, their faces contorted in pain. The stench of death hangs heavy in the air. This isn't a scene from a horror movie. It's 1348 Europe. A mysterious illness, later known as the Black Death, has arrived on the continent's shores. It spreads like wildfire, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. In today's video, we're journeying back to this harrowing chapter in history. We'll uncover the origins of the Black Death, witness the horrors it inflicted, and explore how society grappled with this terrifying pandemic. So buckle up, history buffs, because we're about to delve into the year 1348, a year that would forever change the course of European history. In the mid-1300s, Europe was ravaged by the Black Death, a bubonic plague pandemic. This horrific event, considered one of history's deadliest, saw millions perish, perhaps half of Europe's entire population at the time. Spread by infected fleas carrying the Yersinia pestis bacterium, the Black Death wasn't just a health crisis. It was a social and economic earthquake. It forever changed the continent, triggering religious upheaval and economic shifts, and leaving a lasting mark on the course of European history. The Black Death wasn't the only plague Europe would face, but it marked the gruesome beginning of the second pandemic. The Black Death's birthplace remains a mystery. While genetic evidence suggests the plague bacterium, Yersinia pestis, originated in the Tian Shan Mountains of Central Asia, the exact location of the outbreak is still debated. Theories point to regions like China, the Middle East, and even Europe itself. The most common story places the blame on the Genoese trading port of Kaffa in Crimea. Under siege by the Golden Horde in 1347, legend has it that plague-ridden corpses were catapulted over the city walls. From Kaffa, the disease likely hitched a ride on black rats and their fleas aboard fleeing Genoese ships. This deadly cargo then spread through the Mediterranean, reaching North Africa and Western Asia, and ultimately engulfing all of Europe. The Black Death's rapid spread inland throws a curveball at our understanding. While rat fleas are the usual culprits for bubonic plague, evidence suggests person-to-person transmission might have played a bigger role. This faster spread points towards pneumonic plague, a more contagious form of the disease transmitted through the air. Adding to the mystery, recent discoveries in Kyrgyzstan unearthed a surge of deaths from the Black Death in the late 1330s. When combined with genetic evidence, this suggests the initial outbreak may have predated and even fueled the Mongol conquest of the 14th century, not the other way around. The Black Death wasn't the first disaster to strike Europe in the late Middle Ages. The continent was still reeling from the Great Famine of 1315 to 1317 when this horrific plague arrived. With a death toll estimated between 30% and 60% of Europe's population, the Black Death wasn't shy. It also claimed roughly a third of lives in the Middle East. The devastation wasn't over quickly. Further outbreaks continued throughout the late Middle Ages, compounded by other societal issues known as the crisis of the late Middle Ages. It took Europe until the 16th century to recover its pre-plague population levels. The Black Death wasn't a one-time event. Outbreaks of the plague haunted communities around the world for centuries, finally fading away in the early 19th century. The early explanations for the Black Death. Back in the 14th century, the world of germs was a complete mystery. Without microscopes to reveal the true culprit, explanations for the Black Death ran the gamut from the scientific to the divine. The esteemed medical faculty of Paris, for instance, clung to the ancient miasma theory, blaming a misalignment of planets for creating a great pestilence in the air. On the other hand, Muslim scholars offered a blend of religious and practical interpretations. Some viewed the pandemic as a divine test, a martyrdom and mercy from God that secured a believer's place in paradise. Others, however, saw it as a punishment for the ungodly. This viewpoint discouraged preventative measures, as some Muslim doctors felt it was futile to fight against God's will. Thankfully, not all Muslim scholars subscribed to this fatalistic approach. Many adopted the growing body of European treatments for plague, recognizing the need for practical solutions. Additionally, they drew upon the vast medical knowledge of the ancient Greeks, whose writings offered valuable insights into treating illness. This blending of religious beliefs, traditional practices, and emerging European knowledge highlights the complex ways people grappled with understanding and combating the Black Death. Signs and symptoms. The Black Death manifested terrifyingly, and the most recognizable symptom was the bubonic plague. The plague wreaked havoc on its victims. Imagine a high fever somewhere between 100 and 106 degrees Fahrenheit, 38-41 degrees C, accompanied by throbbing headaches and a dull ache in every joint. Nausea and vomiting added to the misery, leaving people feeling utterly wretched. Untreated, the plague had a horrifying mortality rate. A staggering 80% of infected individuals succumbed within 8 days. Descriptions from the time paint a vivid picture of the suffering. Many accounts mention the telltale sign, buboes, also known as gavociolos. These swollen and tender lymph nodes, typically appearing in the groin, neck, and armpits, would ooze pus and even bleed if lanced. One particularly gruesome account from Italian writer Giovanni Boccaccio details this horrifying symptom.
In men and women alike, it first betrayed itself by the emergence of certain tumors in the groin or armpits, some of which grew as large as a common apple, others as an egg. From the two said parts of the body, this deadly gavocciolo soon began to propagate and spread itself in all directions indifferently, after which the form of the malady began to change, black spots or livid making their appearance in many cases on the arm or the thigh or elsewhere, now few and large, now minute and numerous. As the gavocciolo had been and still was an infallible token of approaching death, such also were these spots on whomsoever they showed themselves.
This was followed by acute fever and vomiting of blood. Most people died 2 to 7 days after the initial infection. Freckle-like spots and rashes, which may have been caused by flea bites, were identified as another potential sign of plague, pneumonic plague. The Black Death wasn't a one-size-fits-all horror show. A particularly brutal form, known as pneumonic plague, was documented by Lodewijk Heilige, a chronicler who witnessed the death of his master, Cardinal Colonna, in 1348. This terrifying version attacked the lungs directly, causing severe respiratory problems. Unlike the bubonic form, the symptoms started with a fever and a cough but quickly progressed to producing blood-tinged sputum. As the disease ravaged the lungs further, the sputum became free-flowing and a horrifying bright red. The mortality rate for pneumonic plague was even more devastating than bubonic plague, with a staggering 90 to 95% of victims succumbing to this horrific illness. Septicemic plague. Septicemic plague is the least common of the three forms, with a mortality rate near 100%. Symptoms are high fevers and purple skin patches, purpura due to disseminated intravascular coagulation. In cases of pneumonic and particularly septicemic plague, the progress of the disease is so rapid that there would often be no time for the development of the enlarged lymph nodes that were noted as buboes. The Black Death's devastating toll. The Black Death carved a deadly swath through Europe, wiping out an estimated 25 to 60% of the population. Some historians, like Robert S. Gottfried, cite early records from Pope Clement VI, suggesting a death toll of 23.8 million. Considering Europe's pre-plague population of around 75 million, this translates to a mortality rate of roughly 31%. This number falls between the horrifying 50% death rates estimated for regions like East Anglia, Tuscany, and Scandinavia, and the much lower figures, less than 15%, for areas like Bohemia and Galicia. Interestingly, it also aligns closely with the claim by chronicler Jean Froissart that a third of the world died, possibly inspired by biblical references to plague mortality in the Book of Revelation. However, other historians like O.J. Benedict propose a much higher overall death rate for Europe, closer to 60%, citing the poor nutritional conditions of the 14th century as a contributing factor. Ultimately, medieval historian Philip Daleiter suggests a more moderate estimate, with 45 to 50% of Europe's population succumbing to the plague over a 4-year period. The true number may forever remain shrouded in some mystery, but the devastation caused by the Black Death is undeniable. The Black Death's economic fallout. It has been suggested that the Black Plague, like other outbreaks throughout history, disproportionately affected the poorest people and those already in worse physical condition than the wealthier citizens. But along with population decline from the pandemic, wages soared in response to a subsequent labor shortage. Many laborers, artisans, and craftsmen, those living from money wages alone, suffered a reduction in real incomes owing to rampant inflation. Landowners were also pushed to substitute monetary rents for labor services in an effort to keep tenants. The trade disruptions in the Mongol Empire caused by the Black Death were one of the reasons for its collapse. The Black Death was not just a moment in history, but a turning point that shaped the future of Europe. It brought unimaginable loss, but also profound change, paving the way for economic, social, and cultural transformations. Understanding this past pandemic can help us navigate the challenges of our present and future. If you found this exploration of the Black Death enlightening, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into pivotal moments in history. Thank you for watching. Stay curious, stay informed.